afternoon. Buenas tardes a todos. It is a great pleasure to be here with you today in the company and in conversation with Teresa Serrano, an artist that I have known for many years and respected her work and have followed her work. She's also in the museum's collection. And thank you to Barbara for the invitation and for having organized all of this magnificent exhibition of Teresa Serrano's work.
Thank you.
Our goal here today is to shed some light on Teresa's background and trajectory, as well as shed some light on the magnificent works that are being displayed here on the walls and on the floor of the gallery. So let's just jump into it. Teresa, like many women artists of your generation, your career unfolded in a rather unconventional way. You did not grow up thinking that you wanted to be an artist. You did not go to school, to the university, to study fine arts to become an artist. In fact, as if I recall correctly, you only decided to become an artist when you were like 40 years old. That's when you made the decision to become an artist. What happened then? And what steps did you take to make that happen?
I married too young. I was 19 years old. So I had 6 children in a row. At 26, I had 6 children. So my life was like 24 hours a day, routine. There was no way to stop. And I grew like that, and I was very happy because I love the children and I like children. And that helps a lot. And I enjoy, the talking, for example. I would stay and listen, and I have thousands collections of conversations between them, and they were very funny. But then, when they grew up and the little one went to secondary school, to high school, then I was free. And then started the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, I had time to think. I had time to do things that were not anymore the routine. And I decided to do something. And first I went to give as a teacher with the nuns of my school, that they put a school in a suburb that was very poor. So they told me, come and teach with us. And I said, but I am not a teacher. I never started to be a teacher. You had already 6 children, so you must know. And then we help you. And they gave me, all the programs for school. And I had like 23 kids of 10 to 14 years old that they had to approve first the 6th year, the primary school. And I did it. I did it well, like 20, from 23, 20 pass. So that was a good record. But then the president of Mexico, who was Echeverria, the wife, made a school in the suburb, and I didn't have the credit, so I couldn't continue. And a friend of mine from school told me, why don't you come and to learn how to paint? And I said, listen, I sing very well and I would love to sing, but I don't know if I can paint. Why don't you come? And in kind of desperation, I said, okay, I'll go. And here am I. I stay. And I, after that school, there were only people from, rich women. And they wouldn't go every day. I would go every day until I got the key, and I would go even Saturdays. So I loved it.
When you
painting.
When you were growing up, did you ever have the urge to draw or to paint?
Not at the beginning. At the beginning, I went because of desperation.
No, but when you were a child, when you were growing up, did you ever have the urge to draw or to paint?
No. I studied with Javier Arevalo, who was a painter in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
I took classes with him for 3 years. And another one who was not a known painter, but he was from Hungarian.
But that's when you were already an adult.
New York was after. Yeah. I stayed in Mexico and I learned how to use oil and charcoal and all the tools to paint. And then I started going, for example, to see the galleries all around. And I saw Miguel's work in one gallery. And Miguel Angel Rios we are husband and wife. And but at that time, I just saw his work and I liked it. And, destiny is very funny. One friend of mine, like 3 days after I went to see this show, he wasn't there. And my friend says, come to dinner. I invited two, two painters, and one of them was Miguel. And so we met on that moment, and we stayed friends. When I moved to New York, because I was fed up and tired of the situation of being the wife and misunderstand wife. So, so one day, I said I'm going to marry my two daughters who were the oldest, because at that time to be divorced in Mexico was really very bad. It was, they would be punished. So I waited until the second one married. And 8 days after, I took my things and left everybody at home, the husband and the children, and I went to New York. But my children were very friendly with me. So until now, we never had a problem. But I left and I went to live 40 years in New York, 30 years.
That must have been a very difficult time for you and for the family.
It was because I was used to be with so many people.
The
Because
change
there
of
were
pace.
my 6 children plus 10 more that would arrive, friends that I had every day for meals, for lunch, 12 people.
Yeah.
12 kids, no? So I was used to be surrounded by so many people that when I left and I went to New York, that was hard, very hard. So I would walk, for example, 40 blocks, to get tired and be able to sleep. Other way, I would be like that and saying, I think I have to go back. But then the song came out in the morning. I said, no way. So I stayed in New York, and I needed to learn, because when I went to New York and I saw the things over there, I couldn't understand. For example, performance was hard for me. I never saw in Mexico performance. I never saw installations. So the first installations was strange for me. I saw Anish Kapoor, and there were 3 pyramids of Chile, curry, and the blue pigment. And the smell in the gallery, what is happening here? So I used to ask, the owner of the gallery or the people who were there, can you explain me? I don't understand. And after that, I found out that at New York University, you can go to, ¿cómo se dice?
Audit. To audit classes.
Just to hear.
Yes.
And so I would go and hear artist talks, historians,
Yes.
many people, curators, and I would stay there and hear, and I learned a lot. Plus, I met people very interesting in New York, so I, started conversation. Miguel was there, so I would go to his studio, he would go to mine until we finished up together. And
did you take any classes, any fine arts classes?
Excuse me?
Did you take any fine arts classes?
No.
Sculpture or drawing or?
No, nothing.
You just started drawing and
went
painting
by myself. I learned a lot by hearing and by questioning people, and also talking with Miguel was interesting, because I was trying to be an artist and he was already an artist.
Yes.
So we used to talk a lot and have conversations, and that helps a lot. And then I was free, crazy. I didn't have fear. And I started thinking very conceptual. and started doing this work, for example, no? And at the beginning, I painted in Mexico, and I made a full um, a, 2 shows of painting about offerings in Mexico. You know that when someone dies, you make an altar with flowers and candles and this, and we call them offerings.
Ofrendas.
Yes, and I had my mother died when I was 14, my father when I was 35, my aunts when I was 20, 19. So I had a lot of my people dead, and I did these offerings for them.
Yeah.
And I used to write in the paintings. I usually I write something, no, a poem, a saying, whatever, phrases. And I showed with the Galería of Arte Mexicano in Mexico. I made 2 shows, but since I left and I went to New York, I lost that contact because I wouldn't come back until I was established in New York.
And in New York, you abandoned painting and started experimenting with
I
other
started
materials.
painting also, but I said, no, this is no, I don't want to do that anymore. So I stopped.
Yeah.
And I started doing sculpture, volume. And I love the minimal art. It was for me fantastic. But at the same time, I thought that the minimal artists were like too religious or religious or too um, um, how to say
Doctrinaire.
yeah
Dogmatic. Dogmatic.
all the things were too rigid, like macho.
Yeah.
No, like very macho people. So I said I'm going to ask to answer them in a feminine way.
Yeah.
So I started using all the materials of the minimal, but adding up things like the white balls or the leather belts or veil or encaje. ¿Cómo se dice encaje?
Embroidery.
Exactly. Okay.
That's one of the things that I think it strikes me about your work. And probably because you did not have a fine arts, a conservative or traditional fine arts training, you felt at liberty to use any materials that you wanted, or any style or any language that you wanted. You start off from minimalism, but then you add other elements like you're saying, and those elements carry narrative with them or carry some kind of poetry, which is anti-minimalism. But you combine both of them and you create objects that are enigmatic in a certain way.
Of course.
They almost have a tinge of surrealism in some way. We will see it and discuss it in relation to these theories. But they're very hard to classify. And people are always wanting to classify you and to place you in a niche and a category. And I think that's, you have rebelled against that. One of the things that strikes me about your art is that you wanted to establish your own rules.
Yes, correct.
And nothing was off limits.
Well, what happened is, this Hungarian guy who was like my father age, and he was a painter from Hungary, and he had won prizes over there, and he had worked with many incredible artists in Paris, and then he was a gypsy, and the wife was the reality, he was from the gypsy family, and the wife was Jewish, so they have to to get out from Europe.
Escape.
And they came to Mexico. And I met him there because I liked the paintings. They were abstract, but strange, nice. And I met him and I started going to take classes with him. I never painted with him. We just talked. But he opened my mind. He made me more daring. So every time I did a sculpture and I added something to the material, those materials will open me new ways, new things, and that made me very, I don't know, savage. I didn't care about the materials. I would use them, I have an idea and I really think of the idea. And if I think it's worthy, then I go for it.
Good.
And then I find the material to talk of the idea. See, and that's why I use so many materials.
Yes.
Because I don't.
You have a very broad
the
range of
material is going
materials.
to help me to say what I want to say.
Yes.
And that opened me many ways.
Yeah. Yes, I think that that's one of the fantastic things about your art, that there's no limits to it. You know, it's about the idea.
Sometimes some limits cut me right away.
Yeah.
But I don't care and I go again,
Yeah.
you know, to whatever it occurs to me, whatever idea comes. I think that it's a good idea. That is saying something or asking something, then I go for the material, and it worked for me very well.
And many times you have to figure out how to use the material and the techniques that go into it, right?
Well, maybe because I am, ¿cómo se dirá? I don't know, creative, yes, but not creative. I have this feeling, let's say.
Intuition.
Yes,
You have an intuition.
Intuition, that's the word.
Yeah.
And then I use it freely. Sometimes I throw them. You know, sometimes some ideas didn't came out
work
well.
out.
I didn't work. So I intend in another way. But of course, I have many errors also.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the use of petos, which is a very unconventional material. Because you use conventional materials, you can use, textiles or canvas or paint or ceramics, etc. But the petos is a very unusual material. Very, when you see it for the first time, you don't know exactly what it is. And obviously, it falls into this category of your experimentation with materials. How did you discover the petos, and what do they facilitate you?
Well, I was born with a father who was Taurino.
I'm sorry, the petos is a translation for horse blanket.
For horse blanket.
Horse blankets.
So
Should have clarified that from the beginning.
Exactly.
It's called petos, P-E-T-O-S.
Correct. These are the blankets to cover the horses in the bullfighting. Usually, this is, first of all, this is a feast that the Arabs brought to Spain in the 12th century. They were the ones who brought that feast, which was for a god, the horse, el toro, the bull. For them is a god, and they brought this custom, their uses and customs, and suspecting, and Spanish loved it because half of the Spanish people were Jews and the other half were Arabs. So it's a mezcla. This is a
mixture.
Yeah, that create the Spanish people. And this toro, this bullfighting was I think it's the only country that now has still bullfighting. And I was born with a father, Spanish, who loved that and would take me to see the bullfighting at 5 years old, no? So you get used to it. You don't question at 5 years old, no? And I used to talk to people, to the toreros and all the crews, that work on that. And I knew that they do these things to cover the horse so that the bull doesn't kill the horse, because they used to kill 2 horses or 3 horses in every corrida. And so to protect the horses, they made these huge blankets, very thick, and they embroidered it, but they are only men who do this work.
Men are the ones who make the petos?
And women cannot enter to that place because it's bad luck. So I went to the plaza and I talked to one of the guys who were doing the job. No, don't enter. Okay, you come out. So he came to me and I said, I want you to do some work for me. Yes, of course. But where? In my house, in my home, in my studio. So he went to my studio and we started doing mountains. I said, I'm going to use these blankets that are very strong and heavy and good because it's like the protection not only for a horse, it's mountains and rivers and volcanoes are the protection of the humankind. So nature is feminine for me. Nature is the one that creates life. And so I said, since it's feminine, I'm going to do mountains with this blanket. And the interpretation is the strong part of the woman, who is the iron, no? And the soft part, which is sensual, is the cover. So it's about women and protection, and
Am I
it's a
reading too much
feminist
into
way
them?
of looking at nature.
Do some of these evoke vaginas or uterus? Am I reading too much into them?
¿Cómo?
Some of these pieces?
These are mountains.
These are mountains?
Yeah, for me. For me, all these pieces and the ones on the floor, these
Isn't
are
that like a
mountains.
uterus?
That is a uterus.
Well, that's a uterus. I'm
That
not
is a
crazy.
uterus. That is
That's
a
a
uterus.
uterus.
Because I worked through nature and women, no? It was, for me, nature is feminine. So it's a woman, produces life, and we produce life. No? Without us, it's very difficult. Now, probably not, because they are going to be in vitro, and maybe you are going to say, I want a kid of blue eyes and dark hair, and I don't know what, no? And then you just go and pick him up. But I did also, for example, many works about in vitro fertilization, about the new way of having a baby. So there are, for example, I interpret the in vitro by a box, like a cardboard box with the burn form in the center of the first, ¿cómo se dice? Fetus. And the other one is an acrylic box with the fetus made in acrylic in the center. So it's the box, the cardboard box that is not going to be useful anymore, which is the uterus, and the in vitro that it's going to be, something different completely. And probably, we'll arrive to that because they stop it, everything they stop because the Vaticano and the Catholic Church stop it, but they continue. I mean, there's no way to stop scientists' discoveries. There's no way, no? So maybe in 2 years, women will not use the belly, the uterus, and they will just, have the ovals and the estoy torpe ahora. ¿Cómo se dice? El esperma. And just put them in a hospital or in a place, and you just pick up the kid. It can be that. It will arrive to something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
you cannot stop.
Going back to the use of the petos. So you had the men who made the petos do this for you. Did you intervene them in any way?
It was very funny because, he would say for me, I would say, cut here, cut it. No, it's not going to work. Because, of course, he was thinking of the petal that is covering the horse, no? And I said, no, this is another thing. Just cut it there. And we worked together, and I realized that I'm going to be very feminist today. I started saying, okay, I'm using a man's work to make a feminine sculpture.
Yeah.
And this is the result.
But you did not intervene them in any way. You did not sew them or do anything.
No. I started showing him what to do, but it's just impossible. You need too much strength. It's a big needle, like for upholstery, but they are very thick, and they have a knife in the end, and when you cross the thickness of the blanket, it's impossible for a woman to hold, you know, pass through it, and it's you need strength. You need really strength. So women that's why women doesn't do that.
Yeah.
They don't do that. It's men. But I would tell, cut here, put that, do this, do that.
What about the colors? The colors you choose the
It's
colors?
nature, no? Just the sky, the water, blue, or the green of the trees, uh, the red of the flowers. It's about nature.
But the petals are not usually those colors. So you chose the colors.
Yeah, I chose the colors. The petals used to be the sun color,
Yeah.
and red or green or yellow dots.
What I love about these works with petals is that they give this sense of protection. It's like the body is not present. There's no body, but the body is there. It's insinuated. It's like a shelter for the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in certain way, it's part of. Yeah, I feel like it's a body, part of it. Not a leg. No, mostly the chest or the belly.
No, there's a body there, but it's not present. It's not represented.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And are you trying in some way, by calling them rivers and mountains, are you trying to reconceptualize the notion of landscape or nature?
Well, my conception is that protection is very important for men. We should take care more of the nature, because we are the contrary. Instead of taking it like as protection, we are harming, the nature. But for me, it's very important, the nature. I love nature. I was born in Mexico when Mexico was 1,500,000 people. So it was very small, and my house was in the country. Was the last house of the city. I lived with cows, with sheep, with horses, and mountains, because Mexico is full of mountains all around, and the volcano. So for me, it's very important, the nature, the country.
Yeah.
And I always thought through nature about whatever I did.
Yeah.
It was like a symbolic for me of protection, of being comfortable, of that.
Yeah. Yes, I love the way that these bring together the notion of nature with the notion of fertility and the origins of life in woman.
Yes.
And the suggestion of the woman's...
It was just like a normal continuity, of what I did with the petals, and then go to the goddess of fertility, who I thought of the ¿cómo se llaman las mujeres de la fertilidad? De Anatolia, who they represent the goddess of like very big, fat woman, no? The goddess in Anatolia many years ago, centuries ago. And I went through that thinking. Now women, we take care very much of our bodies. It's completely a different story than what it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I started mentioning that and doing fertility woman in sculptures.
Well, the sculptures that surround us here are part of the Goddess of Fertility series, right?
Yes.
Okay. And here, you resort to the biomorphic ovoid form, which is this white form that you're using in these sculptures. How did you arrive at that form?
¿Cómo
llegaste a seleccionar esa forma ovoide?
The forms. Well, I started with the Anatolia ones who were bulky, very fat. So I made with iron structure. I fill the structure with balls like these ones, but in red, in green, in brown, and they are all together very bulky, no, huge. And that I started like that, making up, talking about the fertility woman. Then I moved and made also this other store, which are also fertility woman.
But these have
using only one.
pointed. These have pointed. The endings are pointed. They're like nipples.
Yes,
So you're trying to combine the ovoid form with a
Correct.
woman's breast.
yes. I did that because when you see, if you see the Anatolia, you'll see that the comes from there because they are very big
The
senos.
Anatolia are the
The
big ones.
senos, they are like this, but they have balls.
Yes, yes.
Big balls, you know.
And they're like
The stomach was a big ball. The chest was big ball. Everything was like that. And I love that feeling of being fat or that you can surround that, no? And I started doing this first. The first one was in 1994, and it was un concurso,
a competition.
a competition al aire libre to, ¿cómo se dice aire libre? Okay. Of sculpture. So I was invited and I presented that woman of fertility in red, everything red. And she is 3 meters high. And we put it in one.
So those were made with fabric, or were they made with fiberglass?
It was fiberglass.
Okay. Why did you choose the fiberglass?
Because it's easy to manipulate. It's nice. And
did you do it yourself?
What I did first was with globe.
Yeah.
Como globo se llama globo, no? I fill it with water. I give the form. And then I put the fiberglass all around. Let it dry, then polish it, perfect, and then paint it. Red, green, I mean, whatever color was it.
Yeah.
I use many whites because I love that minimal thing. But that is the story of the woman of fertility. And I work with that material because it's very easy to manipulate, very easy. And it stays there. Nothing happens to it. They have 40 years, no? And they are perfect, no problem. They can wash, you can wash them. And maybe, if you scratch them or whatever, you can paint it again, but nothing happens to the material. So I chose the material because it was easy to manipulate. But the idea was that to make women of fertility, and the difference between the Anatolian ones and the new way of being as a woman.
Yes. And the one in the back, you said that it had to do with in vitro?
Well, yes. And what they have to do with, I call them audible forms.
Why audible?
Audible forms.
Why audible?
The baby, you can hear the baby in your stomach.
Yeah.
You put like a horn, the doctor puts like that on the belly, and you can hear the baby. You can hear that it's alive or not. You hear the heart.
Yeah.
So it's audible forms. That's why I put that name. And
so each one of these ovoid shapes is like a fetus?
Yes. Well, because I think it's a huevo, no? An egg.
An egg.
It's an egg. And I continue doing kind of eggs in order to talk about fertilization, about.
Yeah. Okay. And the use of belts that you use, like this one is hanging from belts.
Well, belts, is like very strong attachment to things.
Yes.
Belts are like, ¿cómo se dirá? I love belts because it's skin. It's a skin.
Yes.
And I
it's a very tough skin.
Tough skin. But it's a skin. And I'm talking about fertility or human beings, no? And skin.
Yeah.
It's also part of the human being.
Yeah.
And I use the belts because these are strong. I mean, very strong.
Mhm.
And they can resist. They can live for many years. And nothing happens if you don't manipulate it. I mean, if I start moving the belt every 5 days or every month, or it's going to be
Brittle.
yeah. No, it breaks.
Break.
But if you don't do it, it can be many years. No problem. But it's about skin. So
So it's not about control or about imprisonment.
no, it's about skin.
Okay.
Which is skin. The leather is skin.
Yeah.
Not now, because now it's plastic, but those are real.
Well, the emphasis on the goddess of fertility brings to mind your relationship to feminism and feminist art.
Yeah.
At the time when you arrived in New York in the 80s and early 90s was the peak of the so-called feminist movement. Were you in touch with some of the artists that made up that movement or exemplified the various tendencies?
Well, yeah.
Judy Chicago or Louis Bourgeois or
I live with Louis Bourgeois in New York.
you lived with Louis Bourgeois?
I live because I saw her many times. I was part of the Soho, and I love her work.
Did you identify with them?
I talked several times with her. We even have a photograph together because Annie Plum who was the first person who showed me in New York. She made a show who was called Show of Strength. And it was about Nicaragua's war, where they used kids, to fight. And the show was called Madre. And they invited us like 25 people, 25 women. Between them, there was Chris Bourgeois and many others. That there were also Liliana Porter from Argentina. There was another Chilean. Then
Cecilia Vicuña.
Nancy Sparrow. I mean, huge, important artist.
Did you engage with them?
And I was there.
Yeah.
So I have a photograph with all these huge artists. And I'm there, stupid, in the center.
Did you identify as a feminist then?
Yes. The photograph it has the names on one side with all the people who were there. And but I met them. I met many of them. And of course, you get familiar with their thinking. But most of all, it's not because of them that I became like more feminist, let's say, because I am not an activist, but of course I am a feminist. And I did all this about almost more about myself, my life, my own life, my way of passing through, and more than anything else, because I could compare other of my friends who were beaten, for example, like the husband, and things like that. So I started doing video, for example, which are feminist videos about what happens in my environment in Latin America and in Iran and in Afghanistan and in Africa and in India and
everywhere. I want to touch
everywhere.
upon the videos because these works that we're seeing here touch upon the more poetic side of your production, as I mentioned before. But then you begin in the 80s, right, to do videos. And these videos are about the situation of women, about violence, about narco trafficking. They represent a much more visceral and more caustic aspect of your production. And I can think specifically of La Piñata, or the Piñata, which is in the museum's collection, and we have shown it many times. We had it for the inaugural display of the Kinder building. And it's a very, very strong video of about 10 or 15 minutes of a man tearing down, destroying a piñata in the shape of a young girl from Monterrey or from the north of Mexico. It is a very disturbing and unsettling video, to the point where we had complaints from visitors at the museum, particularly women, who found it too unsettling and thought the museum shouldn't be showing those kinds of videos. So there's a very stark contrast, between this kind of poetic manifestations and this video, full of violence and power. How do you reconcile those two aspects?
Listen, when this was 1998 that I started hearing that in Ciudad Juarez, in the border with Mexico,
Yes.
El Paso, they were killing a lot of women and throw them in the desert.
Femicides.
And at the beginning, it was, I heard it like a gossip, but little by little, there was more certainty on that. But no newspaper, nobody would talk about it. It was just like a gossip, going through. So I said, no, I want to know what is really happening. And I asked a friend of mine who was architect, and he had a few friends in Ciudad Juarez doing the first highways and streets and places where they could build houses, because it started the fabrics of maquiladora, where like for
Textile.
car parts and things, and they were almost all of them women. So I said, no, I want to really know about that. And I went through this this architect who was my friend. And I went over there, and they gave me a chauffeur and a car. And he said, take care. I said, I took my camera. I came here to make photographs. So no, don't do no. I'm going to shoot the photographs, because that's why I came. Right. And I just went over there, and they were very poor houses made of trash bags and black, and or wood or whatever they could
Shanty
make
town.
houses.
It was
And
a
all
shanty
of those
town.
people, they already had the streets and lights, but the houses were really the poorest people in the world, and they were, most of them, women with a child, mothers without father, no, without and the kids. And I knocked in every door, and I asked them what's happening. They said that they kill you. What is happening? And they said, yes, it is true. And then why don't you ask the companies to put a bus in a certain place, pick you all up, get them to the factory, and come back at the same place, so you don't have to cross the desert? Why don't you ask? And the woman said something terrible. She said, well, we are too many people. If one dies, there are 20 behind the same job.
Oh, God.
So they don't care. I really came back, disgusted, very hungry. And I said, I'm going to do a video talking about that. So I sent to be done a woman, a girl in piñata, in una piñata. You know what it's a piñata? Okay, that they fill with candies and things, and then you break it. But I did a woman. I dressed her with paper and painted and leave her like a kid of 20 years, that they were the ones who were working in the maquila. And I put a hair, green wig with long hair. And I asked to an actor, theater actor, to hit the piñata, break it. And of course, it was a terrible. I took two cameras. I keep one camera steady, and I had the other camera. And I took the whole video. And, the dogs in the next door, where I put the piñata, and it was a garage. and the dogs in the other start barking because of the heating. It was bah. So the dogs were, and they are in the video because you cannot get rid of that, no?
Yeah.
And I did the piñata, and it was really, it's disgusting if you want, but it's the truth. It's something that make you think, why do this has to happen? And it was very exitosa, no? It's been all over.
No, it's an amazing video.
But it's hard. In Switzerland, in Zurich, they put the piñata, and also the people were angry.
Yes.
And so
we had to put an advisory
we
for people
decided
you're walking into a
to make a
disturbing
room, of wood with small
Yes.
windows, and you see through the window like in a jail or something, no? A murder. But it's much better because kids cannot, yes, for the height of the window, they cannot see that. So we decided to mount it like that after that because they were angry.
Yeah.
And with you, it happened the same, no?
And you've also done videos about narcos?
Yes. Well, Mexico is a problem. I don't like many things that are happening, but I understand that it has to be stopped. It's terrible because it's a narco país. It's true. And many years ago, the drug war was about heroin. So the plants, the amapola, is used by the narco still now, and it was horrible because Mexico is a place that you walk over dead people, no? They bury the people wherever, and it's really ugly. So I made a video of amapola, but I sing amapola, the song, which is very nice. But I tried to use amapolas and I couldn't because this is the owners are narcos and you cannot go through. You cannot get near. So it's very dangerous. So I was looking for to get one amapola, no, to film. There was none, no, couldn't get. So I went to many stores that they sell silk flowers or imported flowers, no amapolas. So once to so many people that I went to ask, I left my telephone number. So if you find one, you let me know. So like after 2 months, someone called me and said, I have 3 amapolas. They are very bad condition, but you want them, pick them up. So I went over there, I picked them up and I fixed one, perfect, with the leaves and everything perfect, the flower. And I sit it on the country, in Tepoztlan, in the country. I sit it like if it was the real one. And I even put some air, so it can move a little bit. And you really think that it's real, but it is not. Because I just couldn't get one plant. No way. So I filmed that in the country and I sang the song. Amapola, lindísima amapola, ¿no? ¿Cómo puedes tú vivir tan sola? I had almost son. He's the son of my friend and he grew up with me also. And he's a composer. He does very well arrangements for any music. So I went to him and I said, Santiago, you have to do a miracle. I don't sing anymore well. My voice is crooked. So now you have to make a mirage. and he did, very easy. And so we put the music on the video, and at the end of the video, I put that so many people have been killed because of the heroin in the country. No, so nobody thinks that I'm making propaganda for something else. But yes, I have done. And many, I've been diptychs about the first war, lost war of the United States.
Yeah.
Uh, also about the drugs, no? Because many years ago in the United States, the aspirin had heroin, and they used codeine, ¿cómo se llama? Coca to the dentist, and the people started making habits, so they stopped it. They had to stop everything and do it again, the medicine, and that I call the first lost war. And I made diptychs about the amapola and the letter, I mean, the phrase and things like that.
Well, listening to you now talk about all these issues in Mexico strikes me that your work has a lot to do with Mexican themes and topics and subject matter, even though they're not figurative, they're not representational. And it strikes me because ever since the revolution, Mexican artists have been under great pressure
Yes.
to represent markers of Mexican identity, whether they're exvotos or huipiles or the Guadalupe or, whatever, they're forts, indigenous people. There's this expectation that you have to represent Mexico in some way or another. And when you got to New York in the 80s and 90s, it was the invasion of Frida Kahlo and the New Mexicanists, who had reverted back to painting and were using Mexican identity in a critical way.
Yes.
But everything was about painting and Mexican identity and zarapes and charros and things of the sort. How did you manage to escape that? How did you manage to escape that? And were you, did people recriminate you in Mexico for not being a Mexican artist?
I am Mexican, definitely, but I don't use the identity, what the people thinks of the identity of Mexico.
Yes.
Or the Mexicans, or the craft of Mexico is beautiful, but I don't think this is craft, for example. I don't identify the petals with
Yes.
with craft, no?
But did people recriminate you for
I
not?
don't use really Mexican identity as the Mexicans can think that is the identity. I am Mexican, definitely, and I'm talking about my country all the time. And I try to fight for my country in ways, thinking ways. But I don't use what it meant Mexican identity.
Do you think it has had anything to do with the way your work is received in Mexico? Do you feel like you've been appreciated as an artist in Mexico?
¿Me siento como?
Sí, you've mentioned in some interviews that nobody is a prophet in their own country.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Not me.
Do you feel that you have not been appreciated? Your work has not been understood?
Yes, you're right. But in certain way, it's not because the problem in Mexico is that they still have this idea that being rich is bad. And I was born rich. Fortunately, I didn't do anything to be rich. My father made a fantastic work and he was rich and I grew rich. And in Mexico, you cannot be rich. You cannot, for a rich people cannot have ideas. And to me, it was very hard. There is a saying, no, nadie es profeta en su tierra. Nobody is a prophet in their own land. Well, exactly that's what happened to me. But I never care, I continue and I did what I wanted to do and you like it well, you don't like it, I don't care. I'm continuing to do what I think that I can do.
Yeah.
And I can do well. Sometimes, not always, but most. I try to do things that mean something, that ask questions or give answers, no? Because I think art, that is the base for art, to question or give answers. That's what for me is art.
What is your next project?
Ay, Vanessa, I don't know. I'm almost there. I'm too old, but I'm trying now to. I found some beautiful flowers in Patagonia, the south of Argentina, and they are amazing flowers. I love them. It's very strange. I never saw something like that ever, except there. It's like a very dry place, so the leaves are very long and thin, but the flower is not bigger than that, like this, no, yellow, but it's like a mouth, and they come the pistilos, the how do you call el pistilo de la flor, pistil. Okay, they are long 50 centimeters. Believe me, amazing, red and straight like that. They don't go down, just straight like that. So it's like spitting, like they are spitting you. It's like eso, están escupiéndote, pa. And I love them. I said, this is amazing. Nature is very angry to us. So I want to do some painting. Imagine I'm going back to painting.
Like the painting.
And I want to do this flower that spit the shadows.
Yes.
Shadows of person.
Sounds fantastic.
So that's my first. I'm going to do that. Now I cannot paint big because I get dizzy, fatal. No, I cannot. So I will do in 1 meter, 120 the most. Because big ones, I faint. Imagine that. How stupid. No? I go like that and then suddenly, no, I can't. I cannot. I cannot anymore.
Okay.
So I'll do them not too big.
Yeah.
But I want to do that project because it's funny. Nature is angry, really angry. And these flowers are just spitting, and I love that. So I'm going to do that project.
Fantastic. Sounds fantastic. Good luck with that. So I think now we can open it up to the audience. If people want to ask questions from Teresa.
Could you speak a little about these works?
These ones? These were about during the pandemic that everybody was so scared and we had to be inside. And so I made this with my hands, and it's about life, about death. During life, the men's hands, the human hands, are the ones who help nature to reproduce, to grow. And when we die, we are the feeding of that nature. So we come back and we feed the natures again. So it's about life, about death.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I had to question about I don't know what you call them, pom-poms, the little puffs.
The spots?
You might have addressed that, so that was curious. I then started studying it.
It's really part of the petos. They are like that. They are made with straw, with isle. How do you say isle? No sé.
Isle.
It's this very hard, like straw, and they are knitted and very cheap. They put that on the blanket, so it's this big, and they embroider it like that. But just is everything is beige. It's natural color of the straw, and the spots in red or in yellow, and that's what they do. So
They're
I just
fantastic.
use what it was made and remake it, let's say, with colors or another ideas.
But it
that is
adds
what it
a
is.
tactile quality
Uh-huh.
to the piece, which
Yeah.
is fantastic.
It's I love them. I like to work with that. It's very, I don't know, it's gay also, no?
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yes. Anyone else?
But Do you think he'll be doing more of these again that are similar to these pieces from the 90s?
Fer, ¿qué me dijo?
Que si vas a hacer más piezas como estas de los 90.
I don't know. Maybe I did that a lot years after.
Uh-oh.
Years after I did that one, that it's a punching bag. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe one day I wake up with something that has to talk about again, something like that. I don't know if I'm going to do the same. That's different, maybe completely different. But yeah, I can talk about women because it's a subject matter now in the world.
Hey. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Teresa.
Grazie. 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 Grazie.